Yo, what's good, YouTube? We're back. Today we're doing how England's football team is breaking the sport. I don't know if this is about like watch time or watch era, stuff like that. I'm pretty sure yesterday my brother was telling me, and I know that like it's Premier League is the most watched football league in the world, the most watched sports league in the world. So I do know they have a lot of fans and a lot of culture over there, stuff like that. So we're gonna see what this video breaks down. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, and we're gonna get into it. I do know that the Prem starts on Friday, which is probably when this video is coming out. So yeah.
3 in London, on February 3rd, 2023 in London, the English football club Chelsea played a home game against a rival, Fulham. The game ended in a scoreless draw, but Fulham's fans were so excited they stayed to chant after the game. Soon, these words were in articles all over the world because, in just 1 month, Chelsea had spent €329 million on new players, more money than all the clubs in the French, Italian, German, and Spanish football leagues spent combined.
Wow.
You have a club like Chelsea. And they think they can do everything. I mean, it's an extraordinary amount of money.
But it's what Chelsea's owners believed it needed to do in order to succeed in the most competitive, most popular, and richest football league in the world, the English Premier League.
The English Premier League, these sums of money are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
The problem is that the Premier League's clubs have grown so rich that the rest of Europe can't keep up.
It's very difficult to be competitive against English clubs. It is so far ahead of all the other leagues. The gap seems to be widening.
So how did the English Premier League get so rich? And how is that a problem for Europe's favorite sport?
How's that a problem? He's gonna explain how being the biggest in the world is a problem? Okay. Let's see. Too big to fail.
These aren't just goals, they are wonderful goals!
I need to start by explaining how football works in Europe. Starting in England around the 1860s, people began organizing official football clubs and playing each other. Eventually, they divided these clubs into a tiered system. The worst clubs played down in these leagues and the best up here. But clubs could move within this system. At the end of each season, the bottom 2 clubs in a league would be demoted to the league below, a punishment called relegation. But the top clubs would be promoted up.
It puts a competitive edge to everything.
This is James Corbett, a senior reporter at Off Pitch.
You know, effectively, you could have a village club that might be in tier 10 of English football, and if you do the right things, you know, they could be playing in the first division within a decade. You do have those fairy tale stories.
Wimbledon, 6th in the first division in their first season in the top flight.
On the verge of a football fairy tale.
By the mid-20th century, these 5 leagues in the biggest 5 countries had most of the best players, and therefore the best clubs. But every year, the best club from every league would play each other in a big tournament, at first called the European Cup. It was an opportunity for clubs in any country to win big. In the 1980s, clubs from 16 different country leagues reached the semifinals, and in that period, a Portuguese, Dutch, and even a Romanian club won.
He's saved it again!
A Romanian club?
Have won the European Cup!
Wow.
But football was about to
1986.
change, and it began in England with a tragedy. On April 15, 1989, 700 people were injured and 96 killed at a game in Sheffield,
96 killed.
England, when poor crowd control and stadium design led to a stampede. It was the low point for English football after a disastrous decade.
Killed.
English stadiums were falling apart and attendance at matches was plummeting. And English clubs were banned from European tournaments after a fight between fans killed 39 in 1985.
39.
Well, English football was a game in decline.
Was it
You had
that serious?
rioting, you had hooliganism, you had racism. It was like an epicenter for all of society's ills.
Disputes between clubs and television broadcasters resulted in none of the English top leagues games airing on television during the 85 and 86 season. So many of England's best players fled to play in the other European leagues. By 1990, a few people were desperate to turn things around, specifically the owners of England's 5 richest and most popular clubs.
Arsenal, Tottenham Hotspur, Manchester United, Everton, and Liverpool.
Big clubs wanted a bigger share of broadcast revenues, centralized marketing. You know, they saw the benefit of that in US sports. And essentially they saw They saw an opportunity.
In 1992, they led a group of 22 clubs to break off and form a new league called the Premier League, and they designed it to be English football's resurrection.
It's a whole new ballgame.
Oh, so the Premier League is a fairly
The
new
Premier
thing.
League served as the
They
new
said
top league in
1990.
English football. It controlled its own TV rights, which it sold for 427 million euros to a satellite TV company. Cash that the clubs then used to find new ways to make money and modernize the game. They renovated and built new stadiums that could fit more fans. And they started selling sponsorships and merchandise all over the world. But it was satellite TV that made the biggest difference, allowing the games to be broadcast to new audiences like in the US and Asia. The Premier League was able to more than double the price for its rights in 1997, and again in 2001.
It is one of the great success stories in global sport.
Crucially, the Premier League divided its TV revenue relatively equally between clubs, which made them more competitive. Spain, Italy, and Germany all gave more TV money to its most successful clubs, which let a few dominate year after year. By 2004, the Premier League had successfully turned English football around, becoming the wealthiest league in Europe, and some very rich people were noticing. Hey, I'm Sam Ellis, and welcome to Search Party. I'm gonna really quickly say thank you to today's sponsor, Incogni.
Oh,
Every year
I was
there are
gonna
more.
say, is that the brother? Is that one of the rich brothers? But yeah, Incogni. Oh, I skipped way too much. Sponsor me. Alright.
He's a Russian businessman who, back in
Roman
2003,
Abramovich.
was worth almost 10 billion euros, and he wanted to buy a football club. He settled on a West London club named Chelsea, which was in deep financial trouble. He paid around 199
They
million
always
euros
are.
for the club and to relieve its debt, then immediately injected millions more of his own money to buy almost a dozen excellent players from clubs in the Premier League and across Europe.
Not a shock.
Even while the club lost money, he added more.
That's the big
We always
moment
do that.
because he came
So
in
that's
at the time.
okay. So that's been in Chelsea's blood since day one.
He had a level of wealth that was just beyond anything that the Premier League had ever seen before.
Chelsea quickly won the Premier League in 2005 and 2006, and began consistently qualifying for and advancing deep into the All-European tournament, since renamed the Champions League.
Champions League.
Abramovich proved that you could buy success in the Premier League, and it encouraged other owners to try it for themselves. Throughout the 2000s, a new class
If you
of
hear
wealthy
thunder,
and
it's
mostly foreign
outside.
owners began buying
not
and
tripping.
pumping millions into Premier League clubs. It helped that at first the Premier League had very few rules on who could buy a club and how much they could spend on it.
The Premier League has always been sort of quite non-interventionist. Any investment is good investment.
So these new owners began making the already rich clubs richer, while others boosted some smaller clubs into notoriety. Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan was a member of oil-rich Abu Dhabi's royal family, who in 2008 bought Manchester City.
Yeah, Man City moved it up another notch because you had the resources, not just the wealth, but the resources of a nation state.
He spent over 1.7 billion euros over the next 15 years on the best players, coaches, staff, and facilities from
That's
all over
different
Europe.
type of bread.
And of course, it worked.
Yeah, Manchester City is definitely worth more. And clearly, as you can
This
see,
strategy helped spark an arms race in the 2010s. Clubs
Domination.
started spending more and more each year to sign the best players and keep up with each other. While many of the rich clubs could afford to lose money on expensive players, many smaller clubs couldn't.
It created huge inflationary pressure, not just in terms of transfer fees, but in terms of player salaries, and they effectively pulled the rug from under the feet of other clubs.
And it became harder for clubs promoted into the Premier League to afford to stay there.
Clubs have massively overspent trying to get into Premier League.
In 2013, the Premier League adopted rules that were designed to encourage clubs to break even. But they didn't slow down the spending, because these clubs were in a lucrative cycle. As wealthy owners spent millions to bring the best players to the Premier League, more fans, especially international ones, wanted to watch it, which generated more TV money,
hello.
which gave clubs more money to spend on more players.
Technically, I'm international.
By 2022, the Premier League had 11 of the 20 richest football clubs in the world. And as far as revenue, the Premier League clubs brought in over 3 billion euros more than Germany and Spain's top leagues, and more than double France and Italy's.
Yeesh.
So by 2023, the Premier League was on a spending spree that Europe's other clubs just couldn't match. something Chelsea made obvious in 2023.
Transfer deadline day, and Chelsea have locked down a British record transfer
spending of $357
Yeah,
million in January. La Liga president has launched a scathing attack. The British market is a doped market. This can jeopardize the sustainability of European football.
You're just
Do you
broke,
think we're
buddy.
going to see a time when the Premier League's ever equalled by any of the leagues?
By 2023, Europe's other leagues generated far less television money than the Premier League. But they also had more rules. Germany blocked ultra-wealthy owners from taking over its clubs, and Spain's league placed strict spending limits on its clubs. It often made these clubs healthier financially, but put most of them at a huge disadvantage when bidding for players against Premier League clubs, like Chelsea. The year before, new ultra-rich
You gotta be a
American
Chelsea
owners
fan.
had
You keep
bought
bringing
Chelsea,
them up.
decided to splurge on new players, and were prepared to pay huge prices in order to outbid the other Premier League clubs. It offered 121 million euros for one player from Portugal's league, and 70 million for one in Ukraine's, plus millions more for another 6 players, totaling 329 million euros. That's more money than the annual revenue of most European clubs. So Chelsea got these players, and while its spending was extreme, even the worst Premier League clubs were outbidding Europe's major clubs. Southampton bought 5 players, including one from France for 25 million euros, and Bournemouth bought 3 players, including one for nearly 23 million euros from Ukraine. Essentially, Premier League clubs are buying up nearly all Europe's best players, and these clubs can't afford to stop
What
them.
did
I
Bournemouth
know
buy?
executives at what, by any measure, I would consider big clubs in, say, Germany. And they're very, very frustrated because every year they will lose their best players to an English club.
Zolansky, we're
Some
trading
already
in
rich and
Kuku
successful
back.
clubs in Europe are trying to match the Premier League spending, but it's caused Spain's Barcelona to spiral into a debt crisis.
The funny thing that I'll say about this is when Premier League teams don't want a player, they don't get in a bidding war. They literally say, no, he's worth more. Or they get rid of him because they have to, and they want like space for other players. They don't say, "Oh, okay, yeah, we actually need." It's not even like they're doing it because they need the money. They're doing it because we need space, or we have too many players.
And Italy's Juventus was
So it's
caught
never
fudging
like
its
a
accounting.
war. It's just you can have him. Just give
Europe's
us
other clubs, meanwhile,
at least
are increasingly
200,
choosing to sell their best young players
maybe
to Premier League
120 if we're
clubs,
feeling nice.
meaning it's harder than ever for them to compete. You can see it happening most clearly in the Champions League tournament. Remember back in the 80s when clubs from 16 different countries made semifinals? In the past 10 years, it was just 6. And only these 6 clubs have won it. Playing in a major Champions League match earns a club millions, so when it's dominated by a handful of rich teams, they get even richer.
It definitely affects the competitive balance. Clubs from less significant European leagues, it is gradually forced them out.
This runaway wealth imbalance is why a few rich clubs, including 6 from the Premier League, tried to break away and form their own Super League back in 2021. An outcry by fans forced them to abandon the plans, but the problem didn't go away.
We talk in terms of European Super Leagues, but the reality is the Premier League is the European Super League.
They do have the FIFA World Cup now, but Champions League is still
The Premier League has
the
announced
best
that it plans to install
tournament in the
stricter
world.
rules that limit what clubs can spend
Facts.
on players. And
Best
it might
tournament
be
in the
starting
world.
to
You can-
enforce
you
its
can-
rules better.
You can
In
attack
February
me if you don't believe
2023,
so.
the Premier League charged Manchester City with more than 100 violations of its financial rules, stretching back as far as 2009. If found guilty, it could be relegated. But restricting spending could just make permanent the advantage the rich clubs already have. It's the Premier League's past willingness to let anyone own a club harder to fix.
Once you've opened yourself up to a nation state buying into your organisation, very, very difficult, if not impossible, to stop that.
Manchester City completes a historic treble.
And I'm not sure that it can be done.
I don't know. Do y'all see anybody else catching up to
And-
the Premier League?
And that's the first episode of Search Party.
Do y'all see any team across the world, worldwide, that plays soccer, football, sorry, that catches up to them? I know obviously there's other teams like Bayern, PSG, Atletico Madrid, but league-wise, do you see any other? Because when it comes to leagues, like, sure, I watch Premier League, so I know like the teams and stuff like that. But when he was highlighting it, like the teams he was highlighting in other countries, like the 2 or 3 teams, like there was Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Atletico Madrid. That's probably the only teams I know in Spain. I think Villarreal is a team too. I think that may be another country. But yeah, I don't really know many other teams in other countries. I know like the 2-3 best, the most money making ones, like Dortmund and Bayern in Germany, and then that's it. That's as far as my memory goes. But also, I'm American, so I don't expect me to know everything about cross-country football playing like teams and stuff. But yeah, it's a good video. It explains a lot. Definitely let me know about this league more. Obviously, you know, or I'm gonna be watching today, technically, if the video comes out today, the Prem. And yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'm gonna see you on the next video.